So, what are your favorite spy movie scores?
For me, what do I love?
Hello and welcome to Bonfire Conversations. I'm your host, Hamid Reza Nikofar, and today I'm joined by two of my favorite composers. First, we have the Oscar-nominated composer of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Steve Jobs, and The Trial of Chicago 7, Daniel Pemberton. Joining him is the incredible James Griffith, a member of the band Toydrum and composer of Three Pines, Time Stalker, and the show we'll be discussing a lot in this episode, Slow Horses. In this episode, we dive into Slow Horses, the way Daniel and Toydrum collaborate, the technical aspects of making music, and their favorite spy movie scores. Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe to Bonfire Conversations if you're enjoying the podcast. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to Bonfire Conversations, guys. So honored to have Daniel and James from Toydrum here as my guest. Pablo couldn't make it today. And we're here to talk about their collaboration work and Slow Horses, which just released its fourth season with an astounding 100 score on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a single soul said a bad thing about this season. Congratulations, lads.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, and the new season is really great. I had to, haven't had to. I've just watched it all through again. And it's really nice to watch it a bit later after you finished working on it, like with a bit of a gap. And it's a really fantastic new season. I think we all feel it's probably the most exciting one for music yet.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, no, I agree. Great. It's I went to Dan, you were doing Spider-Verse in Tokyo, but I went to the screening at the cinema, so I got to hear it on the big speakers, and I was like, yeah, it's awesome. We're very excited about this one.
Yeah, it just keeps getting better and better. So when I do these interviews, I usually try to stay professional and keep my fanboy emotions in check. I had the same intention for this interview, but then I thought, what if I get run over by a bus tomorrow? My soul would be hanging around saying, God damn it, I had Daniel Pemberton in front of me. I didn't share my story. But don't worry. I'm going to connect this to a question for all of you, so please bear with me. So I remember back in 2013, I heard Daniel's score for The Counselor, an underrated movie, by the way. And it was almost the beginning of my career as a music composer at the moment. And I became a fan. And I remember thinking, we should hear more from him, man. And every time Daniel succeeded, it felt like my favorite team scored in a big league. So now cut to the present. Every time I start a project, I name a few of my favorite composers in my head and ask myself, how would they approach this? Daniel is always one of those composers. And most of the time when I ask, how would Daniel start this? I answer, there are no limitations. Sound is on your own thing. So, Mr. Pemberton, thank you for all these years of ghost teaching me, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Glad I've been of service.
Yeah, and thank you, James, for giving me the opportunity to fanboy a bit here.
No, it's fine. It takes the pressure off us. So you fanboy.
Awesome. So, here's my question regarding this for all of you. Are there any other composers whose thought process you consider before starting a project?
Do you want to go first, James? Or
you can go. Come on,
okay,
Dan.
yeah. I think one of the things I love about being a film composer or TV composer or game composer is, for me, it's a bit like you get to start a band. You're starting a new band for each project. And I think one of the things I've loved about this industry is, if you're recording, James and Pablo used to be in a band called Uncle before Toydrum. And when you're in these kind of bands, you have to kind of stick to a certain sound, and it's hard to be creative, really creative and really jump between different boundaries and different musical ideas. And one of the things I love about doing this work is I get to, I'll do Slow Horses, which will have a certain sound. And then I'll do, Enola Holmes, which sounds completely different, or Amsterdam, or Motherless Brooklyn, all these kind of different projects. And so what I think I probably do is I think about sound worlds that I feel are going to be like have the right vibe for this for the project. So with Slow Horses, for instance, when I came on Slow Horses, I felt it needed like the composers I would have been influenced by, like in terms of Spy, like one of my favorite composers is John Barry, who everyone loves, and you can probably hear a bit of that influence in the high piano note sound, but I didn't want it to feel like stuff you'd heard before in spy shows, and I thought this is a very particular series in terms of very unusual. The spies are not the usual super slick, Jason Bourne, James Bond kind of spies, and I wanted to create a score that had that rawness and wonkiness and shonkiness of Slough House and the vibe of the Slow Horses. And so, I would have been influenced by a lot of records of that style, like Kurt Weill or Tom Waits and stuff that kind of vibe. And then one of the reasons for bringing Toydrum, not Slow Drum,
that's probably a better name,
was I love the fact that in the kind of records and work they'd done, they had similarly embraced this kind of sort of raw, rougher feel to music. There's a lot of music out there that's very slick, very heavily produced, and their stuff is still very heavily produced, but in a different way. And I thought that would be a really good fit for like what I was doing. It's a bit like being a director and trying to audition the right actors to work with on a project. So, I kind of had this idea of how I wanted it to sound. So we set it up, and then, after the first couple of episodes, that's when we started working together more. And now on the 4th series, it really feels like between us, we've really kind of nailed this approach and this sound that we're working towards.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I guess starting with your question about do you get influenced by, I mean, yeah, like Dan said, we're all influenced by everyone, whether you're in a band and you're writing a song, you might, everyone starts somewhere, everyone's influenced by someone to get somewhere. But I guess for us, because we come from bands, like Dan said, we kind of have a thing, and it was always, how do you push in and out of that thing without, I guess we always end up, our studio is very much a part of our sound. When you say, Dan, I guess when this is all very rough, and so it's like, how do we dip in and out? But the Slow Horses, go ahead.
If Jackson Lamb had a studio, it would probably look a bit like James and Pablo. Not that I can talk. I think we both have a kinship to just kind of chaos.
Chaos and all kinds of stuff. But we I think for us, because we come from more of the band, we're learning, and we've been in the game a lot less time than someone, Dan, or a lot of people, is how we're now. I think when we first started, everything we did sort of maybe been, oh, that sounds like them. And now I'm feeling much more excited and more confident for some other things to push out a bit and go, oh, that's much different than what we've done before, which is what Dan's talking about. But for this one, Dan got us involved because of what? the sound that we're used to is very rough and dirty, and which is what I guess if we're going to be known for anything, it's that. A lot of broken instruments and vintage gear and all that stuff. So it's the collaborations worked out well. It was a good blend. You cast it right, Dan. There you go.
Yeah, it's a perfect match. And the answer was great. Yeah, being kind of like influenced by your band members. And regarding that, I'm curious about your collaboration on Slow Horses. How do you guys work together? Let's go deep and talk about the technical side of it. Do you work on separate scenes, or do you also work on each other's sessions? How does it work? And do you guys use the same gear, DAW, plugins, or specifically some tools for Slow Horses?
All of the above, really.
Yeah, it's quite like what we've sort of done on this show is built a lot of, like, it's going to be boring and technical, which if kind of people watch
please do.
So
if that's the definition of boring.
There's a sort of great, like, sort of fifth Beatle who's not here, called Alex Gruz. who sort of assists me in making sounds, and he helped build a lot of sounds on this show. Me and him built a lot of these early sort of noises, which are quite a distinctive part of the score, which, you know, some of them are made of like old banjos. Some of them is like, I've got this old Yamaha VSS sampling cheap keyboard that really makes things sound really kind of gritty and weird. So we create a lot of instruments, and then both of us have access to those. So that's a kind of key thing that gives it a unique, you know, they're like unique instruments. So that keeps the show sounding unique. And it means we have things that stop it getting too all over the place. You know, gives it a sort of uniform sound. But then as these series have gone on, what we've started doing is me and James and Pablo will spend a couple of days just jamming in their studio, because it's good for me to get out of mine. And that will create a lot of sounds, a lot of ideas, and a lot of sort of textures and melodies that will then turn into more instruments or use within the show. And then we just kind of split it up. Like, I'll work on some scenes, James and Pablo work on some scenes. Sometimes I'll send what I've done over to them. They'll add something, or Toydrum will send stuff to me. Yeah. I'll re-edit or rewrite on top of it, or take some things out. And it's a very collaborative process. You know, I'm very involved with it. They're very involved with it. And, you know, we go to every spotting session together. And it's a really nice way for you to work, because it's, you know, for me, I'm so used to working on my own. So it's nice to have some other people. James, you can talk a bit about it as well.
Yeah. No, it's like you said, and I think it has really, it's naturally grown, because I think it's hard when you, even though we've known Dan for many years, we'd never worked together. It's hard to just dive right in and go, we're collaborating. So it's very naturally built to a really nice place in season 3, especially, and now in 4, where we're bouncing back and forth and everything. But again, we didn't try to force it. You know what I mean? It's happened very naturally from where it started to where it is now. But yeah, Dan comes down. It's always great, Dan, in our studio, because a lot of the stuff there that's hiding that we've forgotten about, Dan will be digging out and going, well, let's try some of this. And it just gives us brings a new energy into our place. And we get a lot done, in a very short period of time. And that's sort of been the thing, is like a couple days, jam, get the ideas out, turn them into tracks, and then we start splitting stuff up. And it's now really working well. And now that the directors are the same for 5 and 6, it also makes it a little easier moving forward. We all know each other and know how we all work together. So it's been really good.
Yeah. So regarding this, have you ever had a disagreement, and how do you handle disagreements, both with your co-composer and the director?
I would say
with knives.
The first series was very difficult in that we were trying to establish the tone of the show, and there's a lot of different opinions. And one of the things that I was very keen on doing was trying to not make this sound like every other spy series or TV series or drama series. And as part of that, you want to limit your range of what you're using, so you can create something that sounds, if you listen to the score, every show always sounds very distinctively Slow Horses. And you can sometimes watch some, let's say, I don't think particularly well music sourced trailers where they just use generic spy music or drama music. It really changes the feel of the show. And I really want, for me, it's really important a score really captures the essence of a show. And so part of that was I wanted to band things like, strings, big, heavy, thumpy kind of drums. I wanted sounds that were more off kilter, and I didn't want to overscore sections. I wanted, I wanted music that had a bit more kind of neutrality sometimes, and a bit more nuance. And the first series was definitely, it's always hard on a first series because everyone's trying to work out what this show is. And so, I had to dig my feet in quite hard on the first series.
Oh, no, I remember you said.
Yeah, because I'm looking down the line. If this is going to be a long-running series, if we put every single thing in this first series, musically, it's not going to have an identity. So I was very keen on trying to create this identity, both through the theme song with Jagger and the palette and the textures. And when we got to season 2, there was a sort of idea to sort of see whether we take it somewhere else, which we kind of worked with. But by season 3 and 4, it felt like actually we really want to go back to this core idea of this sound world that we've created. And that's where it really started feeling like it was coming to life. And we'll have, you know, I'd say earlier on there were more disagreements. I wouldn't say disagreements, but it's more like everyone's
different point of views.
Everyone's trying to work out what this show is.
Yeah.
And you know, even like working with Toydrum as well, it's like I have a certain way of doing things, they'll have a certain way of doing things, and you'd be like, why have you done that? Because the biggest thing is James likes recording at ridiculously weird tempos.
I don't do that anymore.
97.3962.
No, I don't record at the tempo. I vary speed it to that tempo. I love vary speed. I love slowing everything down. I don't know what maybe.
I know you slow it down, but I hate because knowing the process behind the scenes.
I've stopped that. No, I've stopped that. I've figured out a way around it now. So yes, but thank you. Yeah, no, that drove Dan nuts. That was hilarious. He handled it well, but I could feel the seething behind the email. No, those are things. Those are like things you're like, why? And it's something that I just, you know, again, we've not been in this long, and working with another music editor, you know, it makes life easier when everything's on a simple tempo.
But it's one of those things that's sort of interesting because I've done like a gazillion projects, and so you sort of over time you learn certain ways of working, and you just end up working that way. And what's kind of interesting working with like Toydrum is they're coming at it from a different angle, and so you have to sometimes rethink about, well, why do I do that? Or you know, and it's like even if we just go vary speed, I would be like, this is crazy. But I'm like, actually, it makes sense. It's kind of interesting, and it's just
it gives it a sound. But we can do it where it's in the right tempo. But I mean, we've all had to learn stuff. I mean, we've learned. I mean, we had never done action scenes previous to that, and Dan gave us the trial by fire action course, and now he gives us. We get a lot of the action stuff because I really enjoy doing it, and Dan's like, why don't you take this one? You guys have been doing really well on them. So, and and again, that like 3 years ago, I'd not done something like that. And now I feel really confident. We feel confident doing it. So it's been a lot, learning a lot. And probably us more, but you know, you some.
There's some great action scenes in this 4th series, especially the last episode. I don't want to say too much about it, but there was a great like 10-minute chase in the last episode.
That's right.
Amazing. So Daniel mentioned something about the Slow Horses being different than other spy movies. And this is funny because I remember when the first time it was announced, the Slow Horses first season was announced, I'm a huge fan of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, again, but played by Gary Oldman. And I was like kind of like waiting for that type of music because I love that also. Alberto Iglesias, if I remember correctly. But then I watched this and I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds different, and weirdly this sounds cool. It has such a distinctive score. It's a spy thriller, but it doesn't sound cliche. So it kind of revolves around not so perfect spies. So are there any unwritten rules you guys follow, or to perhaps not glorify these characters? Like, here's a awesome spy entering the scene.
I mean, that's the whole sound that was built. I think the whole thing, isn't it? That's where it's all coming from, is not to make it slick. I mean, there's a bit of the slick stuff comes in with MI in the park. It's a different sound, but other than that, it's dirty, it's wonky, it's weird. It can be goofy at times. It's trying to make it that really come from their point of view, I guess. Wouldn't you say, Dan?
And it's also like how you write. So it's trying to write in a way that, like the hardest part with this show, I'd say, writing is the emotional bits, because it's trying to write things that have emotion but don't feel overcharged. because the performances are so good, so you don't want to step on the performances. You know, you've got so many great actors. There's Jack Loudon, Gary Oldman, Saskia Reeves. They're all fantastic, and the scripts are from Will Smith and all that sort of stuff. They're great scripts, and so you don't want to over push on the emotion. And there's these, I'd say, there are unwritten rules to do with like chord structures and how much you say in the score. Like we definitely have one bit in this new series with Jonathan Pryce's character, where it was definitely a scene that we both found quite hard to get the tone right, because it was a very emotional scene. But once you started making music that was overtly emotional, it took the power away from the scene, and it also didn't feel like it necessarily belonged in the world that we've created for this score. And that's another thing that's very important, is trying to make it feel like you could hear this music and within 2 seconds, you know it's from Slow Horses, which for me is always a good TV or film score. You can hear it away from the project, and within a couple of seconds, it will take you back to that world. So I think there are actually a lot of unwritten rules, and they're a lot to do with palette, to do with writing approach, to do with harmonic approach. But the fact is they're unwritten, and I know what they are in my head. James and Pablo know what they are, and if either of us get them wrong, we call each other out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like you said, I think that is the hardest thing, is in this world to do the emotion. It's hard in a lot of scores, I think, when you want to do something emotional that doesn't step on stuff, it's doing what it needs to do, but isn't over the top. And to do something in this sort of wonky, weird world that still isn't, that hits that thing, that has been the hardest. But I think we've gotten it. There's some good bits in this one that go there, but still, I think it's still very much Slow Horses, which is good.
Yeah. So Slow Horses is full of these pulsing bass sounds, creating an awesome rhythmic vibe. How do you approach sound design for these sounds, and what makes a good pulsing, energetic bass sound?
Well, there's a couple. There's one. There's a bunch of stuff that Alex made, which he's just made some new stuff. Actually, James, it's really good.
Is it? Oh, cool. Oh, great.
So they're actually slowed down acoustic guitars, put through some very heavy compression and distortion, and then on tape. Well, not very heavy distortion, but it's just, it gives and then they're slowed down, and so built these contact instruments that have boom, 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 and the tape and the sort of acoustic nature of it gives it an unconventional quality, which is very important with this score. And then taking it down an octave gives it more weight. So there's a lot of, that is a big part of the bass sound in this. And then on this new one, on season 3, actually, I'd say more, with the dogs in the bunker, we were using, what was that weird synth that Pablo had?
This Russian Sonar Works or something.
I know about that. Yeah,
the Russian company. They make wild stuff. We had this drum machine, but it's like a synth drum machine, and we just recorded lots of it and made it. It's like one of those, you can't really control it. You let it do its thing, like the EMS. You let it do its thing, and then hopefully capture it. But yes, we used that that was the sort of heavy bunker stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then also with that, for instance, again, it's one of these things where the unwritten rule is if it starts sounding too electronic, some of the stuff from that drum machine just sounded too, electronic, dancey,
clean,
techno-y, and that's not really what we want. But you'd get a few bass tones that'd be really good, and you'd be like that, and the same with the EMS. The EMS synthy is also in this series quite a lot, and it's a synth. It's the old, I don't know if you know the synthy, very old synth.
Doctor Who synth.
And it's very kind of visceral and a bit kind of, again, wonky. So it doesn't feel like a slick synthesizer sound. And you can use that over, let's say, a Prophet 5. A Prophet 5 is going to sound too synthy 3D and all this sort of stuff. It's finding whatever tools you can that are going to fit within the framework we're sort of devising.
Yeah. So
a lot of resampling is an important part of it, I'd say, is creating performances and then resampling those performances and then turning those into instruments that you can then write with.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah. And the opposite side, there are some beautiful atmospheric pieces across all season. How do you approach designing such sounds? Listening to Pablo and James's amazing work, I know you guys love this style so much.
Oh, sorry. What was I missed the last part?
Oh, yeah. I'm asking about the atmospheric pieces where you kind of like Moody in the background hanging there, but created this scene.
Oh yeah,
opposite the actions.
Yeah, I mean some of my favorite sounds in this are like a bunch of vocals that I put through.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
This very old cheap Yamaha synthesizer that was the first sampler, like a sort of commercial sampler for kids, and it's just got this really low grade quality that's very low bit rate, but it gives things a really distinctive sound. It feels a bit like a mellotron, so it's like recording stuff, putting it through that, recording the output, re-recording that, and then turning that into samples. And it's quite a long-winded way of doing something, but it's just all about the texture and the unusual textures, which can create really great atmosphere. And then, James and Pablo have also got amazing gizmos at their place.
Well, the one of three is that we have like a gizmotron. Or the gizmotron was something that had wheels that bowed like for guitars and basses, and we have one on a bass that Dan did a lot of good stuff on when he came down, but we use it with like a slide, and it's like an E-bow, but instead of magnets, it actually has bows, these wheels that play the notes, and that gives good atmospheric textures. We got a lot of good stuff on 3 with that one as well.
Wow.
But again, I think it's once you record it and record it again and put it into the box, it has this degrading in a really nice way, almost like a tape feel. Yeah. That when it's finally there, it has a sound of its own, which is great.
I love it. It's full. It's very detailed. So now let's talk about your favorites. I'm just quickly going to learn about you guys more. So what are your favorite spy movie scores?
For me, what do I love? I love the Ipcris File by John Barry, which I would say is the closest influence on this. Yeah. Also, big sucker for kind of like a lot of the Bonds, but they're sort of like a bit too done in my head. What else do I really like? There was something the other day. You go next, James. I'm going to think about it.
Oh God, I'm still jet lagged, so I just arrived in LA. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind is I'm trying to think of spy stuff. Is James Bond, but that's an easy one. I
like John Powell's Bourne work as well. I think that's
the Bourne stuff is really good. I'm trying to think of the older stuff, but I mean, I guess. Trying to think what other spy stuff there've been. I think James Bond has kind of ruled the last 60 years of like main big spy stuff. I mean I've got like who did the French Connection? But that's not a spy. That's more cop stuff. But
because there's things like I guess like French Connection has Conversation and stuff like some of those David Shire stories, which are really awesome. In that time, I also
Lalo Schifrin stuff is a Dirty Harry score. Again, that's not spy, it's cop, but the first Dirty Harry score is one of my favorites.
His Mission Impossible TV scores. I mean, I also love like kind of like sort of Melville, like the sort of French spy things. But those scores, the best bits in those movies are often like silent. They use music very sparingly, very well.
Yeah. So, and last question, what was the last interesting movie score you heard?
What have I seen recently? I can't think of. And trying to think what I saw recently because my brain is. I've been in Tokyo for 2 weeks.
A movie. I haven't even seen a movie in a long time. It's a TV show.
I listened to the Long Leg score the other day, which I haven't seen the film yet, but I thought the score was great. It's like one of those ones everyone's told me. I went to see Maxine. I quite enjoyed the score to that. Had some quite cool parts in it.
Which one's Maxine? Is that the trilogy? Is that the horror one?
Yeah, X trilogy. Pearl X, Maxine.
Yes, that's right. What's the score? I can't remember the name. I really liked After Sun, Ollie Coates. Oh, yeah. I like that it's just really understated, and it's very much like hypnotic, which I love. Like someone didn't say, no, it needs to get bigger and we need more melody, all the normal stuff. Someone went, no, this is perfect. No one got involved. There wasn't too many cooks in the kitchen. It's like really simple, spacious pieces that just do enough, and they're just beautiful. And I liked hearing that you could tell no one got involved and tried to fuck it up. So that was good. That's really good.
Yeah, great. So, all right, that's it. Thank you so much, guys. Mr. Pemberton, there's a video of your studio on YouTube that I've watched many times. After watching it, I sold all my analog synth and forced on my creativity rather than getting caught up in gear and fancy distractions. You've always inspired me throughout my career, and this was a dream come true. And James, I got to know your outstanding music through Slow Horses, and I'm a fan of your movie scores and also solo work, Toydrum. You guys approach making music exactly the way I love, and I can't wait for more and more from you two gentlemen. Thank you all for making impactful art and inspiring millions.
Okay, thanks. Love
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And doing your stuff as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Sam.
All right. See you later.
Awesome. Catch you later, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.